Mexican Grand Prix weekend. Tim Hauraney in Mexico City right now and in a beautiful hotel room. I really like the background. It's a nice headboard, Tim. If you're listening to this, I'm sorry you can't see it, but there's a lot of exposed brick and it looks very cool and ultra modern. And Tim actually kind of looks like a bit of a Batman villain. If you were more evil looking, Tim, I would be like, wow, what did you do with Bruce Wayne? So, yeah.
I'm trying to think like what Batman villain I would play.
You're just not evil enough, though. Like that's the thing.
Yeah, I guess I could get a little meaner, but I don't know. It doesn't. I don't think it really. Yeah, I don't think it suits me all that well.
No. You're the guy that takes over the from the Batman villain after they have to vacate because they're in jail. So it's like you're just the good business guy that came in. It's like, wow, isn't this a pretty office?
I'm the one who does in Batman by with legal expertise, even though I don't have any whatsoever.
There you go. And also our good friend Nelson Valkenburg, you were out with him last night.
Yep.
So I hope you guys had a good time, and I know that you always speak so highly of Mexico and just how great it is. But the one thing I think we got to acknowledge right now is there are tensions rising. And there is going to be eyeball clawing out between Red Bull and McLaren. And let's not forget, George Russell is still mathematically in it, although, let's be honest, probably not going to happen for him. It starts with Red Bull being summoned to the stewards after the race. And we talked about this on the show, but we didn't find out what happened until after we had recorded and gone home, so we weren't able to update it. Tim, it has to do with, of all things, duct tape.
Exactly.
Like what? Like what are we talking about here? Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like people are like, what? All that lead up for duct? Who cares? Why should we care, Tim?
Well, I mean, let's just start from the beginning. I can take you through what happened on Sunday. So on Sunday during the U.S. Grand Prix, essentially one of the Red Bull crew members was involved in trying to remove a piece of tape off of the wall that's near Lando Norris's grid box. Mm-hmm. I'll get into what that means in a minute and why the tape is there, but I'll just take you through how I found out about all this. So we were in the media center at the end of the Grand Prix when team personnel from Red Bull Racing had been summoned to the stewards for being inside the track during formation lap, which is not allowed. And essentially the crew member was trying to peel that piece of tape off of the wall. Now, I'll get into the tape in a sec, but I'll just take everyone through how I came to learn of all this. So I sat down with Laurent Mekies during his press conference, and he was asked about it, but not about the tape. He was asked about why they were summoned, and he wouldn't really give a clear-cut explanation because what he wanted to do is he wanted to let the FIA finish off their process because Red Bull Racing really respects the FIA. Essentially, I'm paraphrasing, but that was pretty much what he had said. So we're all kind of sitting there wondering, well, why the hell were they summoned? Don't really understand. And so I had SportsCenter obligations to go and do, so as I was doing those, the email came through from the FIA. I just checked it. It was a fine. And I was like, okay, well, I got to quickly tape this. So there was no real sporting penalty whatsoever. So I didn't really need to worry about filling in the blanks during that moment during TSN. So I kind of forgot about it, essentially, because it was just ended up being a fine. And so as you and I had recorded on Sunday night and I went out for some beers with everybody, that's when I learned about what actually went down. And apparently there was a report that was already out by the time that you and I had finished recording about why Red Bull Racing was pulled up and into the steward's office. Now, let's talk about the tape and why there was tape on the wall beside Lando Norris's grid box. In these Formula One cars, and this has been an ongoing sort of topic and conversation for the last few years as the cars keep getting bigger and the tires keep getting bigger as well. You start to have an obstructed view from inside the cockpit. And I remember speaking with Lance about this a few years ago and asking him, hey, just how hard is it to actually see? Because I come from the days of racing where there wasn't as much obstructed view. I liked to sit really low in the cockpit so I could feel like part of my head could rest a bit on the headrest if my neck started to get tired in a race. And if I was up too high, then the headrest came sort of in around my jawline, and I didn't like that. So I liked it to be a little bit lower. And I still had perfect vision. I could see everything, see the apex. The tires didn't get in the way. But now with these Formula One cars, since the cars have gotten bigger, since the tires have gotten bigger, the visuals have shrunk, and it's harder to see.
Well, I mean, that kind of makes sense, right?
Yes. As these drivers pull up to the grid boxes, they have yellow painted lines on the ground where their front wheels need to be placed. And these yellow lines, they do dart out pretty far. Like I've gone and I've sort of sat and then stood in the middle of one of them just to see how far from eye level these things are for the drivers. And I was kind of like, oh, okay, it's not too bad. I think I could, if I was driving, I just would have to really try to extend my neck as much as possible just to get it perfect. However, Lando Norris did get busted for being out of line. I think it was in Bahrain this year, and was issued. I believe he had gotten a 5-second time penalty. If I'm wrong, someone will correct me in the comments, but I'm pretty sure it was around 5 seconds during the Bahrain Grand Prix. Anyways, that sort of had to do with this topic of like visuals, sight lines, where everything is. And so what McLaren started to do, and this isn't new for McLaren and for Lando, is putting tape on the side of the wall. So as soon as Lando gets into the car, he gets strapped in, and as he's getting ready for formation lap, the team, they look at him and they ask him like, hey, is the tape good here? Find a reference within the car. So it could be the tire itself. How much is the tire aligned with the wall and the tape? It could be a piece of the mirror, like because he can see the mirror. Maybe the mirror has to be in a certain angle and it lines up perfectly with the tape. And they put the tape on the wall, and then they get the hell off the track. And Lando takes off. He does his formation lap, and then when he comes back to the grid, he parks his car. So not only are his tires lined up with that yellow line, but a piece of the car is also lined up from his vision and also periphery with the gray tape. And it's a big piece of tape on the side of the wall. And that helps him with making sure he's not out of his grid box, so he can't be penalized. So just ticking off all the boxes to make sure that he gets a good start, because Lando has been known in the past not to get great starts. And so part of it is him trying to do everything he can to make sure that his starts are perfect. I respect the work ethic. I expect the due diligence of doing everything that he possibly can. But now comes in Red Bull Racing, and hey, there's a piece on the tape on the wall here. Well, let's just take that down. We'll see what happens, right? So we'll have to see where this goes. I mean, Adam, there's no rules in the rule book that says that, someone can't put a piece of tape up on the wall to get a good visual. And there also isn't any rules in the rule book that say that someone can't take that tape off of the wall.
Right.
So where do you think this goes? This is how these things start, right?
Yep. And I love this about this sport. Like, it's my favorite part about this sport. But Tim,
it's super petty, right?
Oh yeah. And you want to be like, listen, if it were me, I would instruct my team to be the same way.
Yes.
There is no honor in losing, right?
Yep.
So any edge that you can get. Now, I guess my question is, does McLaren now leave a guard near the tape?
Well, you can't. You can't have anybody on the track.
So what do you do? Like, how do you do you try to make sure Red Bull are the last to leave? Like, how do you manage that situation, right? Like, it's kind of weird.
That's right. And so that's where it comes down to, right? Do you leave is there one McLaren personnel that is left on the grid by that piece of tape up until the last possible moment before they get called in, and they have to leave, mandatory, have to leave, make sure all the Red Bull crew are out of there before, these are all of the things that I'm sure McLaren is going to be discussing. But again, this is Red Bull doing their thing, right? Getting in the heads of their competitors, and just sort of needling, right? Just needling with just chipping away, man. They're just chipping away. Like Max chips away at this championship. They're just chipping away. And I'm good with it. Like, I mean, it's so far, like, right, that's part of the sport. Like, there is no rules written here. Now, if the FIA wanted to get involved, and start writing in rules about that, I mean, it's a little ridiculous, but they can.
Right. And I think that they ought to leave it. And I want, Carlos Sainz was complaining about the amount of wives and girlfriends shown on broadcast. I want, instead of that, I want somebody to film the tape. And I'm sure Sky Sports is smart enough to be like, we're going to have a camera ready for that. Like, you must. This is like Tape Gate. This is the kind of stuff that transcends the sport and makes it into the mainstream. And what's so fun about Formula One is the quirks, right? The quirks about it, the petty stuff, the silly competitive stuff, that stuff rules about this sport. I love that. I'm curious to know, though, too, do you think McLaren will get into the mud with Red Bull? Red Bull has no problem getting in the mud. That's a Christian Horner DNA imprint. That's not going anywhere. It would take 20 years for that to wash out a Red Bull. Is McLaren willing to get down on that level as well?
We'll have to wait and see. I mean, hard to say, Adam. I mean, I think like from Andrea Stella, he always seems like a very decent in terms of the sporting aspect.
Yes, of course.
Where you make mention of that Christian Horner DNA sort of built into Red Bull, and I would say like since Laurent Mekies has came over, Red Bull is actually starting to their brand image to me is actually starting to soften, and I think it's a good thing. That's what it appears anyway so far. I mean, that takes a while before it sort of bleeds into commentary and bleeds into like news stories and things of that nature. But from the outsider's perspective, I mean, it does seem like a team now, and it seems like they're softening up a little bit as a team, which is not a bad thing, because they've got one of the best drivers, not the best driver right now in the world on the grid. And I think that if there are any ways that you can get a leg up on your competition, any team is still going to do that. If McLaren sees something somewhere that, maybe they see something with Red Bull that maybe they're running their, I don't know, I'm just going to throw something out that in this is not true, but I'm just giving you an example. If they're running the car too low, like what's to say that they can't have the FIA go over and say, let's take a closer look at this car. Remember with the flexi wings? Remember that? Yeah. And everybody was like, well, let's get McLaren back in to the garage there, and FIA, you start doing your job. We want you to put some pressure on those wings. Let's see if they're flexing, and just things like that. Like, what's stopping McLaren from seeing something that I can't see, seeing something on their car on the data that they want the FIA to take a stronger look at and, excuse me, really dive into the details of the Red Bull machine. Yeah. Right? Well, who's to say that they can't do that? I mean, it's been done before in the past with other teams in tight competitions. Remember, the 2021 battle between the Red Bull and Mercedes. Max touched the back of the Mercedes rear wing, and all hell broke loose. Like, it just the levels to this, Adam, are stacked one on top of the other, and that's what makes the sport so great at the same time, because not only is there stuff happening on the track, but so much stuff happening off the track as well. And that this all comes down to competition, trying to beat your competitor. And like you had said, whatever you can do to get a leg up, you should be doing.
Yep, absolutely. Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens this weekend then.
Well, what do you think about all this?
Like I said, I think it's the greatest thing ever. Like, I love this. I want to know exactly where the tape is placed. One thing McLaren can do to make sure that no one messes with their tape is a front row lockout. If they could manage something like that, then maybe Max is in third or fourth, but he's not on the same row, and you can sort of keep an eye on things if you were really worried about it. I'm curious about Zach Brown's direction too. Like, you talk about Andrea Stella wanting to be quite sporting and that sort of thing. And Toto Wolff was known for being quite sporting, but there are other ways that are not petty chicken shit stuff that is hilarious, but also doesn't have a huge effect on things. That can be like, I always felt like with Toto versus Christian, Toto would take big swings. Christian would be like, bop, bop, bop. Like if it was a boxing match, it's like jab, 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 jab. Toto would swing and take out your jaw. And, in the Christian v. Toto wars, Toto won, right? Mercedes won more. Once Toto was in and Mercedes took off, they won way more than Red Bull did for way longer. And I know Christian has the more recent success, but let's be honest about that. I'm curious to see if McLaren's got that, because now, Tim, it comes down to leadership. What does your leader tell you to do? Nobody in the garage is going to step out of line if Andreas Steller or Zach Brown says, yeah, stay away from that. Keep your head up. Don't listen to their petty crap or whatever. Don't get distracted, which a lot of people would say is the right thing. However, if the leader of the group is saying, listen, if you think of an opportunity to get in their heads, it sure would be nice to, like, I guess it's dangerous to make Max angry because he tends to race well. But if you can bother Yuki, if you can bother somebody else, like Yuki specifically, I would target a little bit, because you don't want Max to have any sort of rear gunner. Not that Yuki's ever been up there all season, but you still don't want that to happen. If you can create a distraction away from you that pushes the spotlight onto them, that's what I would do. And I don't know what that is, because I'm not a Formula One team manager and I have no idea, but I hope we see some fireworks here. I hope we see some angry words in the press conferences afterwards. I mean, that is when Formula One's at its best. Yeah,
and I think, Adam, like, it'll be interesting to see if like Zach takes any swings at Red Bull, given the fact that I don't think Laurent Mekies would be one who really comes out swinging. He kind of seems more like the team principal, team boss along the lines of keep team harmony, keep all that stuff away from the team, which Christian Horner actually did do. Can't say that he didn't do those things. He did. But I don't see Laurent Mekies taking the aggressive stances that Christian used to take. I think from Laurent, he would probably ignore everything that's being said and continue on with the job, head down. Let's try and win this drivers' championship battle.
Yeah.
When you speak about Yuki Tsunoda, you actually brought up a good little point where having him as a rear gunner, where it comes to the point where have to think Max may need a little bit of help at some point this season. And it would be great if Yuki could start getting better performances out of the car and a little better from himself. Now, granted, I know back at the USGP, probably would have qualified a lot higher if he hadn't had some other drivers interfere with a few of his laps.
Yep.
But that being said, I mean, if he can get to Mexico here and he can find a better way of trying to extract some more performance, I think it's a good way of like starting off on the right foot, building the confidence and giving Max a hand, because I think at some point Verstappen's going to need it if the likes of like George Russell or the Ferraris aren't around in a race. Mm-hmm. And it's just himself versus two McLarens.
Right. Well, this will be good. I think Max is more likely to get help from Isaac Hadjar or Liam Lawson.
Yeah, that too.
And I mean that. And I think they would be, without having to say anything, it would be inferred that they would protect him. I know that that's a bold claim, but I can make that claim because I don't work for these teams. And I Zach Brown has talked about this many, many times. It is an unfair advantage. Mm-hmm. To say that it isn't is a joke. To say that one team has nothing to do with the other is a joke, because I can remember Daniel Ricciardo telling the press when he took a point away from McLaren a couple of years ago on a
back in Singapore.
Lap.
Yeah, in Singapore.
Yeah, and he said, if Max wins, I get a bonus. They have 4 cars on the track, and I don't think Yuki's more likely to be that guy. I think it's going to be Liam or Isaac Hadjar if they're able to offer any sort of resistance there. But that's just me. Now, Tim, shall we take a look at the Mexican Grand Prix track, because it's a really interesting one, and obviously it's loud and exciting, but what is it like to drive? We kind of did a little driver sim, and Tim's going to tell you all about it. The Mexican Grand Prix, apparently one of the
from Mexico.
the highlights, one of the highlights on the calendar. Tim, you're always there.
Love it.
And you love it.
Yeah.
Apparently the atmosphere is just unbelievable.
Electric, buddy.
Okay.
I know that's like doesn't make any sense, that word, when you're like, yeah, how was it? It was electric. Well, people didn't get electrified.
Mexican fans are just they're in a league of their own.
The best. They're so good.
I would expect to see Cadillac this weekend with Sergio Perez and Valtteri Bottas. I would imagine that would be
rounds.
Good marketing opportunity. I would think.
Rounds. Yep.
And they will be racing here next year. Now, I love that you chose a Ferrari for this. I think it's just maximum chaos.
Well, if I remember correctly, Carlos Sainz had the pole here last year, so I was like, you know what? And we haven't used Ferrari in a while, so I was like, and I know you guys just really want me to use Steak Sauber, but I don't feel it's that moment just yet.
I feel like we need a lime green run around.
I was thinking Steak Sauber for like Vegas or a night race, so it really shined, like those neon green hues that come out of that car.
I like that.
Really
I like
nice.
that. So this track is quite unique, right? Bit of how would you describe it, Tim? Like in terms of just generally how it fits into the calendar.
The thing with this track is, let's start with talking about. Everyone's gonna roll their eyes. Don't turn the video off just yet. Altitude.
Okay, why does altitude matter here?
Well, essentially, the less air, the less downforce, the less the engine has, the more work the engine has to do because there's less air, but also the different types of weird setups that you need to put on this car, which is a lot of downforce, doesn't really do much. The car is going to feel very light. It's going to skate around a lot, so the more downforce you can put on the car, the better. However, since it's just such a tough atmosphere, there really isn't much more you can do than just crank on the downforce and let the driver kind of go and do its thing. Where the driver's going to make the big difference is within the slow speed stuff. Like as we come up to here, turn one, obviously you're coming off this really, really long straightaway. One of the longest on the calendar, downshift. You're probably doing this around second or third. Don't take too much of this curb because you have an orange sausage curb there. Get back on the power. You can really attack this curbing here. And this is all sort of slower speed stuff. This is more mechanical grip, I would say. Making sure that the car is very compliant over some of these things. Like if I take a lot of curb here, the car will be like, yeah, okay, put the power on, give me that power, that's it. And then you come to a corner like this, and since that sausage curb is just raised so high, if you take too much of this, it's just gonna really throw the car straight out of balance and your lap is pretty much ruined. So understanding where some of these sausage curbs are for that first part of the lap is really, really important. There's a lot of little technical details as well. Like you would think that the driver wants to pull the car all the way over to the right at this point of the track, but it doesn't make a lot of sense. You kind of actually want to make sure you're straight lining as much as possible. So if we're coming out of that final corner, you're not really going to turn the wheel much because of the curvature and how the track turns, right? So I'm just going to leave the steering wheel straight, and that should get us to our entry for the next turn. See that?
Yeah.
Didn't even turn the wheel, right?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's interesting.
And then going down into about, you're going to do second or third through here. Most likely you do third or second, depending. But again, you want to make sure you're taking some of the curbing, but not a lot of the curbing. And again, all mechanical sort of components being used here in this sort of slower speed section of the track, and then you're going to be coming up to something that's a little more high speed. And this is where things get really exciting for the drivers. As they come up here, it's not shifting gears, but whatever. This is going to be flat out coming into here. You're looking at probably 6th gear flat out and using as much of the curbing as the car will allow you. We've seen drivers have some pretty big accidents here by either taking too much curbing and being spit right into the wall. So that's going to be a thing that a lot of people have to look for. The game doesn't do a great job of showing what these curbs are really like here.
They're a little bit more aggressive than what you're seeing?
Yeah, they're a little more aggressive than what we're playing with right now.
I'm not sure why the developers did that. Usually these tracks have actually been really good, we've been playing with. However, coming up to finishing off this lap at its best is coming through the baseball stadium.
Right.
Which
is such a cool visual, too.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Even where the media center is, which is located quite close to the baseball stadium because it's in the paddock, and the paddock is located close to the baseball stadium as well, you can hear all of these fans when Sergio Perez would come through here in the media center.
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool. That is so cool. And you know what's awesome about this race too is I don't know if you'd qualify it necessarily as like a street track in the traditional sense, but they are sort of making it out of nothing in a street track sort of way. And yet there seems to be room and it feels like a racetrack. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
Like, there are some like Jeddah and Singapore and Monaco to some degree, just a little bit too tight. Whereas this one, I feel like, okay, we got room to maneuver. They can pass. They can do things.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, you do have big passing opportunities here at this track, which makes it really exciting. The race is, it depends. Like sometimes you can have a good race here, and sometimes you can have a really boring one.
Yes,
like
yeah.
Sometimes you can
the
have
fans
like
are sometimes what carry it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And they're just like, you know what? I mean, the fans are the best part of the whole thing. Like so. And for some reason, Adam, we can't shift, so we're stuck in reverse at this moment.
Are we stuck in? Oh, do we have listen, that would be how like Ferrari to have a jammed up gearbox.
I wanted to show people this last section. So
okay, well, we're just going to have to restart it.
Restart the lap.
All right.
But
I love that your gearbox jammed. That's great. That's incredible.
I can't believe that. Actually, I've never had that happen before. I was wondering if the steering wheel was broken.
So we're going to have to do a full kind of lap around while you catch up to that last spot there because we just came out of the baseball diamond. But we get to see Tim do this at a little bit of speed here, too, which is good. In terms of complexity, Tim, we talked a lot about, last time with the Circuit of the Americas. It's trickier than it looks. Would you say this track is a little bit more of a simplistic look?
What do you mean by simplistic?
Well, in terms of your technical, the S curves at Circuit of the Americas, if you miss up one of them, you're going to be paying for it on the next one or two curves here. This one, I feel like there's a little bit more forgiveness.
There is a little bit. I mean, since once you get into like the slower speed stuff, I mean, if you do make a mistake, it's kind of game over, man, because it is so technically inclined in that sense. If that makes sense. Like if you lock up or snatch a brake here, like it's kind of over.
Right.
And that's sort of it. So, I mean, there are components to this that like you really do have to figure out and get it right, like if you did here, talking and driving.
Yes.
One of my strong suits, but again, right, like you have to get the curbing just right, and it's just so important to not screw that up. And there are potential here for really messing things up.
Here's the baseball stadium.
As we come into the baseball stadium, this is it may not look that difficult, but for some of the drivers, it's a very technical part of the track that actually is quite challenging, and you can really ruin your lap here by doing a couple of different things. Braking too much, carrying too much speed. By doing that, you're going to be coming in here around third gear probably. Taking a tiny bit of this curb, you don't want to take too much of it, but judging how much speed coming in here is really important because we see a lot of drivers that'll go off track and get four wheels off, get the penalty, and that'll be the end of their lap. And that is what's going to be so difficult for a lot of the drivers, judging and qualifying how much speed to take through that particular turn. Here, not too hard, it's pretty straightforward, making sure you're getting nice and close to the orange bollards on both sides, but here is important. Even though it's straightforward, it's like, oh yeah, it's a little turn, whatever, no problem. It's getting to the apex and then trying to straighten the wheel.
Yeah.
And get it so you can get back on the power without having too much steering lock in the car. So essentially you're kind of aiming for the wall here, that Mexico GP, you're kind of aiming for that GP at the end there, and you're taking some of this. So You're not staying completely to the left, you're kind of trying to open up the corner, first of all, but second of all, before you do that, you're trying to get as much speed coming out of that turn, because obviously you're on a push lap, you want to maximize everything. But by doing that, straightening out the wheel as much as you can, getting back to the power sooner, you're going to go faster, there's no question about that. But using a little bit of this on entry is going to be very, very, very important. Because if I'm here, I've opened up the corner.
Yeah.
We have more room to play with. We can go in maybe a little bit later. We can apex a tiny bit later. We can get on the power a little bit sooner. We can straighten the wheel a little bit nicer. If I do something like this, if I don't do the way that I was just talking about, and I just kind of come in, and I leave all of this room over here, you can see
your angle gets pretty tight there very quickly.
Right?
Right.
So you're slowing the car even more now because you got to try and
then you got to catch back up to yourself.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. That makes sense.
So there's all those right, little tiny details.
Yeah.
Make the difference.
Well, and it's always interesting too when you're playing the F1 games, because if you're a beginner like me, you're looking at the racing line they give you, but it's not always necessarily right. So, okay. So Tim, Mexico City, we're going to see you. You're going to be there.
You're going to be there
on the ground.
Have a couple tequilas, and it's going to be a good time.
So I'm looking at a bunch of articles about this F1 Apple partnership, and there's a lot to sort of unpack, and I think, in terms of how quickly this needs to turn around, Tim, I don't think people understand how much work needs to be done on this on Apple's side and on F1's side to move this forward. And what I mean by that is they've got less than 6 months, right? It's the end. We're nearing the end of October right now. That's November, December, January, February, March, and then we're in it. And by the way, liveries are going to be out there in February, like usually by Valentine's Day. So Apple's going to have a plan for that. If you're on the Apple F1 crew right now, you're working every day until the start of the season. That is it's going to be every day, 24 hours. And listen, Apple's got the money to pay you to do that, but it's going to be busy. When we talk about the implications, us being Canadian, you can still watch on TSN. You can watch on the F1 TV app. You can also watch on the F1 TV app in the States. I understand that was quite the sticking point, but F1 was able to keep that. I don't know how that business arrangement works, but I think a lot a people are very excited about the fact that will remain.
They're not. They can't. They won't be showing F1 feed.
Okay,
no.
So I misunderstood that. So this is interesting. That makes it even more interesting. Because Tim, I would say I'm curious about this deal from your perspective, because it has the opportunity to be one of the greatest produced pieces of all time. And what I mean by that is I look at what certain streamers are doing with different sports. I look at what Netflix has done with football and with boxing, like with the Jake Paul fights. I look at what Amazon has done in Canada for hockey. I've seen Apple's broadcasts on with baseball. The only thing about the Apple broadcast with baseball that I don't like is that they have built-in commercial breaks that they don't fill with commercials, and the camera just sort of swings around the stadium, and nobody's really sure what's going on. It's a very off-putting and weird way to do it, and I don't know why they do it. But what it's done is it's injected a new viewing experience for people like us to consume the sport. And ESPN, F1 was always going to be like the 12th most popular sport. At Apple, there's going to be there's nothing going to announce, but we know there's a second F1 movie coming. We know their only other sport is MLS. So this is the only sport that they have that's a worldwide prestige sport, right?
Friday Night Baseball.
But again, worldwide prestige, right?
Copy that.
And I know it's America only, but they're bringing the world to America. I'm curious about what this does for the growth of the sport in that country. Because, the thing about being on ESPN is that you're on ESPN. And some people in their house have ESPN on 24/7. They don't care what's on. It's sports. They want to watch it. Mm-hmm. With Apple, and MLS has found this out a little bit, when you put it behind a paywall, and again, ESPN's behind a paywall too, but it's part of a cable package and people are used to paying for it. Apple's hope is that they're going to drive more subscriptions to Apple TV. It used to be Apple TV Plus. It's now back to Apple TV. Huge rebrand, Tim. I don't know if you heard about that this week. Big news. Literally, that was the big news.
Yeah.
I'm curious about how they grow it. How do you grow this sport when it's not on linear anymore? I'm not saying it can't happen, but I'm curious about what F1 sees as their path to growth through this, because I don't think F1 feels like they're done growing in the United States. I think F1 feels like they've got a ton of growth to do.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious about what Apple's involvement in getting them there is going to be.
Yeah. So on Friday last week, I was in a press conference with Eddie Q. So Eddie Q is Apple's senior vice president of services. He reports directly to Tim Cook, who's the CEO of Apple. Eddie's he's a very big F1 fan. You know, I had some one-on-one time with him following the press conference, just some off-the-record chat, really, and he was telling me how much he loves the Canadian Grand Prix, and he comes to it every year, and how long he's been coming to the Canadian Grand Prix, and things of that nature. So basically, it was all the heavy hitters. It was Stefano Domenicali, president of Formula One. It was Derek Chang, president of Liberty Media, and it was Eddie Q, and they were all in this press conference. And I think for Apple TV in particular, obviously having the F1 broadcast rights, that is just specifically for the US. It's that is it. And it's specifically for the US up until 2030. Mm-hmm. And by 2030, F1 will have other linear, non-linear deals that they've done with other broadcasters from around the world start to come up, right? And one of them will be Apple's as well. Apple's will be up by that time too. The idea behind all of this is simply to try and find and look at a different way of launching sports and sports programming into homes, viewers, fans in America, and trying to find different ways to maybe activate new fans, bringing them on board. I mean, if you look at how many people have an iPhone, an Apple, I mean, I do. All my stuff is Apple products, and then same for a lot of us at SDPN as well. I mean, like, the thing is that those are so many touch points for Apple to activate and bring in new fans, and finding different ways they're going to be using Apple News as a way of streamlining F1 news and content to everyone who has an iPhone. And outside of that, Apple Music will also be involved. And then you have, obviously, Apple as their stores. They're going to be trying to do activations inside their stores as well that is based around F1 and technology. And so having that marriage is going to be very key for launching this property for Apple in the United States. Could this be something that turns into a global deal between F1 and Apple? I mean, maybe. It's too early and too hard to say, because if you think about how much this deal was, it was around about a 700 and I believe it's just over 740 million USD for the 5 years. Mm-hmm. Now, if you take a look at like how much F1 makes from like Sky Sports and their deal, like it's big money. And you look at, Germany, you look at the Netherlands, you look at all the Scandinavian countries as well as Spain. Like, there's so many different, right? And they all basically have their rights deals and they pay into it. And so if there were a global rights sort of deal ever to happen, I mean, the dollar figure would have to be astronomical.
Crazy.
Like, it would have to be huge, because you have to remember all the other TV properties, broadcasters, linear, non-linear, you're competing against for these rights. So, I mean, maybe there's something to be done on that stage, but I think that for the main part of this deal, Adam is trying to find different ways a viewer can experience Formula One. And I think Apple is going to be playing a big role in that with their technology. With, if you watch Friday Night Baseball, which sometimes I do, because I like baseball. So The iPhone was actually used to film a game just before the playoffs.
Yeah.
On live broadcast. Was it the Jays game? I think it was the Jays game that was on a Friday night back in October. No, wait, was it? Sorry. September. I'm getting my dates mixed up. It's towards the end of September. And it was before the playoffs even started. Anyways, Apple had a Jays game or whatever, and they were doing stuff with the iPhone. Essentially, that was part of the broadcast. And so taking some of that technology and putting it into the cars. And like, where can we work with the teams, try and find different angles, different viewpoints? When we watched the F1 movie, Adam, like, we saw all these different camera angles and things that they were able to do with 6K and different rotating cameras that they had built. And, some of all that, obviously IMAX technology, Canadian technology, but some of it was Apple technology as well. Like, we were watching things on the big screen that was filmed using Apple technology, little Apple camera lenses, all of that stuff, right? So there's another role to all this as well, right? Where Apple can get involved and use some of the technology that they have to get involved in the sport. I mean, if you look at like AWS and how they integrate their technology into Formula One, is huge, right? Like, we get how much tire degradation is left. We get how close the cars are going to be in the next 16 laps, all that kind of stuff. How much battery power another driver has, things of that nature, all the computing power the AWS uses. So there are some of these companies that do physically get involved in the actual sport to try and bring another level of storytelling to what's going on the track. And it appeals to some people, doesn't appeal to everybody, right? I mean, some of the data stuff I find very interesting. When we see the ghost car stuff, that's awesome technology. When we see the live telemetry, that stuff's incredible as well. Being a former driver, I like looking at that so I can actually zoom in on the details. But I think, Adam, like, this deal is going to have F1 TV on the broadcast. Like, that's F1 TV with a choice of choosing F1 TV broadcast or Sky Sports.
Okay, so that was going to be my next question. So you're going to have the on-air guys from F1 TV that you're used to, or the Sky Sports people if you want them. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
And there's other forms to this as well. Like, where does this go in 3 years? Right? Like, I picture it as they are just getting their feet underneath them. They got to start with something. Okay, we'll take a bit of F1. We'll take F1 TV. And so fans can have a choice between these two things, listening live to Sky Sports commentary or F1 TV commentary. And then maybe what Apple does is start moving those goalposts and thinking like, okay, maybe year 2, we start looking at doing our own commentary. Okay, maybe year 3, we actually do our own full broadcast.
Right.
And sort of building up to it instead of going all in and doing it wrong straight off the hop, maybe more along the lines of slowly easing themselves into it so they can actually pump out something that they're very, happy and proud of. So I think with the MLS stuff, honestly, I watched a bit of MLS. I used to like going to TFC games and stuff, things of that nature, but I never really watched it when it went on to Apple because I couldn't get it. So I think with this, it'll be interesting to see where they go with it over the next 3 years, but that's what I feel that they'll probably end up doing is by year 3, they have their own sort of show.
And, when I introduced the topic, Tim, I think where I was getting at, and this is, this is sort of behind the scenes, but on my other show, the Steve Dangle podcast, Steve and Jesse and I were able to tour Amazon's production facilities, which are mobile, for Amazon Monday Night Hockey here in Canada. And it's the only Amazon does 2 shows a week. They do a Thursday night coast to coast where it's kind of like NFL Red Zone. They drop in all the exciting moments. And they also obviously have the Monday night game every week, and that changes up city to city. They do the broadcast, which is different for Canadian television. Canadian television got away from doing the broadcast at the arena a long time ago, with the exception of the Blue Jays. They're bringing the studios back to the people. They are in the crowd, in the moment. Part of their Part of their thing was also experimenting with the first 45 minutes. Like, everybody wants you to watch the pregame, and there's a lot of bells and whistles and all that stuff. Sometimes they just like play a feed of the arena, and you can watch the players warming up. And for a lot of people, that's what they want. They want to see that. And I'm curious about the effect a streamer, a true streamer, will have on the sport, because streamers are not as fixed as linear TV. And what I mean by that is, like, most people don't realize how tightly wound linear TV is. The expectations are, this is what we do. We only do this, and we do not veer from this. And it's because it's a tried and true method. It's been around for 80, 90, 100 years. But when I was doing morning television, and Tim, I know you do TSN, the expectations are, you know what the expectations are, and you don't color outside the lines because we know what works and you don't. And that's fine, right? You work within that system. What I love about streamers is they can do something different. And one piece of technology that absolutely blew my mind, Tim, was Amazon has, or at least had last year, and I think they'll probably still have it this year, a system where in super slow-mo, and that's something that's really important in all sports now, like the frame by frame by frame, without going out and getting a crazy camera with a high frame rate that is not really meant for live sporting events, really only meant for movies, they're still able to get higher quality replays because there's AI technology now that is predictive, that is able to sort of fill in the gaps. Now, what's interesting about it is it makes for fantastic television, and you don't even notice it, but it's a tiny little detail, but they can't use it for real on instant replay because it's not real. It's real, but it's changed. So if there was a goal review or something like that, the NHL can't call up Amazon and go, hey, can we have a look at your replay? Because there's AI attached to it, and that does not give them an accurate picture of what happened, which I thought was really interesting. And I'm sure Apple will have plenty of things like that at their disposal.
You know, it's interesting, Adam, when you talk about, like, so for the partnership that, you know, F1 and AWS has is, and I believe I'd overheard this a long time ago. I think they had a role to play in trying to help, you know, the FIA come up with the 2022 regulations in terms of, like, what would it look like if we did this with the cars in terms of the actual airflow, so we can get closer racing. Like, what would that actually, you know, look like? And they were able to, like, simulate things for them so they could, like, have a look and say, well, if you did this, it could do this. If you did this, it could do this. Things of that nature. So again, that's that sort of partnership level that the sport itself is getting involved with one of the partners, where it's kind of like, if you, I don't know, maybe like with the NHL and Amazon and Prime and obviously AWS, maybe there's something obviously there that they can dig into a little more detailed with the actual technology that some of these high-tech companies like have, like when you form a partnership with them and on the sporting side. So I just find that all, like, really interesting, how that sort of side of the sporting landscape is sort of shifting. It's not just with, obviously, you know, Formula One and things of that nature, but it's others as well. I mean, one of the things that Apple, the guys at Apple were telling us about was the fact that trying to use live haptics on your phone. So in the F1 movie, and this is what the director, Joe Kosinski, told me when I was chatting with him, he was telling me that, like, when they built this movie, you know, they built it in a way that they could also utilize the technology inside of an iPhone. So if someone wanted to watch the movie on their iPhone, they could utilize the haptics that live inside the iPhone. So when, you know, one of the drivers drives over a rumble strip, you feel that in your hands. And then when you take a look at trying to do that in live time, you know, that's going to be something they will be working towards, trying to get that live haptics. If you ride on board with a driver and the driver goes over the rumble strips, feel that in your hands, or maybe the sound of the engine, maybe it's a little vibration, or maybe there's a collision or a crash and you feel that in the phone as well. So this is where sort of they're trying to, I guess, push those envelopes of the sport in terms of the viewer and access to it.
Right. Well, that's fascinating. I'm really, really curious to see how this all looks in a couple of years, right? You never get a full sense of it during the first year because they're trying things out and not everything's instituted or whatever. Year 2, year 3, we're going to get a real sense of what the change in the sport is going to be. And I know they're you can watch the Sky Sports feed and that sort of thing, but I think the F1 TV feed with those announcers, it's going to be really, really interesting. I do have to ask Tim, do you think a guy like Will Buxton is going, damn, maybe I should have stayed with F1? Not that there's anything wrong with IndyCar because it had a blisteringly good year. But I'm wondering, it's F1 is a worldwide thing, and this is Apple. Like, what do you think about that?
But the thing is, again, Adam, it's like it's only Apple in America, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not going to be Apple anywhere else. So, I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, I think from what I've heard, I think Will's got a good deal with IndyCar. I don't know the details of it. Or with Fox, I should say. I don't know like the finer details of what he has. From I think the perspective of leaving F1 to go do IndyCar, you never know when you take a risk like that. I mean, I think at the end of the day, IndyCar's in a good place. It's in a very good place. And I think for IndyCar, it's only going to keep growing. And the thing is, when you look at the TV numbers, and we're talking TV, right? But when you look at those like ESPN F1 numbers, and then you take a look at the Fox numbers when IndyCar's on, I mean, they're not that far apart, man. They're not at all. Like it's very, very close, those two numbers. So, I mean, we'll see. Like we'll even see, like, do those fans they have ESPN for having ESPN, and maybe they just tune in to watch one of the races on ESPN1 or ESPN2 or sometimes on ABC. Like, do they navigate over and buy an Apple TV subscription?
I wonder.
Do they? And so, like, what does that do to the numbers? Where's it? And
do we know if it's going to be an upcharge, or will it just be included in every Apple TV subscription?
It sounds like it's going to be included in every Apple TV subscription.
Amazing. Okay.
Yeah. Again, right? You're getting, but again, Adam, it's just for the US, right? Like that's it for now. And so again, it's how do they activate the other non-fans who have Apple products? How do they get them interested and bring them in?
Okay.
That's going to be in my opinion, I don't know this for a fact, but it's my opinion, that I believe will be the difficult part.
Yeah, I'm curious, man. I'm excited too. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about Colton Herta, because I think obviously he's made the switch to F2. We knew this was coming. What do people need to know if they've missed everything on this?
Well, I believe we talked about this story last week before the news came out.
We did. Oh, we did. Listen, I'm not trying to brag here.
I wasn't sure if we were going to get in trouble for that one.
I'm glad we didn't, but we did sort of. Yes, it's happened.
I mean, good for Colton. Going with a good team in high tech. I mean, that's Ollie Oaks' team. So if you remember, Ollie Oaks used to be the team principal of Alpine for a short amount of time. Yeah. And then he went back to his Formula 2 team. And so that will be Oliver Oaks' team that Colton's going to be driving for. They know their stuff. It's a good team. I think for Colton, not only is he going to be doing the full Formula 2 season, but he's also going to be the, obviously, Cadillac F1 team's reserve driver and simulator driver as well. So he's going to be very busy, which is important for him. He is going to need as much seat time in anything that resembles Pirelli tires and an open wheel race car and tires at DEG. And he is going to need all the experience with all of that he can get his hands on, because trust me, this is going to be an uphill battle, and it's not going to be easy whatsoever. He knows what he's in for, and believe he starts testing next week, if I'm not mistaken. I think he's going to be using some old F2 equipment. It won't be with new F2 cars. And we'll see what happens. Like it's a risk. He's taking a big risk, but I respect it. And I think if he's able to get enough super license points in the F2 championship, I mean, that's all he really needs But I think also at the end of the day, he's got to show us what he's got in an F2 car with Pirelli tires. Even though like a lot of drivers may not love the F2 car that they've got right now, but he'll have to figure it out. It's what he's got. Yeah, 100%. It's an interesting story moving forward. Either way, I'm very interested, obviously, in pursuing it and talking more with Colton. Hopefully, I'll get to speak with him when we get to Vegas in a few weeks' time. And learn some more about it.
Tim, I'm curious about what are the real challenges IndyCar to F1 or F2, right? Like what cuz everybody keeps saying it's a lot. Break it down for us normies. Like what is it really?
I mean, it's the car itself. It's how nimble it is. It's the things that it can do, all the technology that's in it. It's all the engineers you have to debrief with. It's trying to learn everybody. It's trying to learn all the systems. It's trying to learn new steering wheels every year. It's all about tires as well and understanding how the car and the tires communicate with each other. And as a driver, what do you have to change to adapt immediately and also to understand tire deg? Like it takes years. I keep saying this on here, but it takes a very long time to learn these tires and to get a good understanding. And if the tire product keeps changing year on year, which it does, because the teams start running more downforce, so the tire has to evolve, then you're stuck learning new tires every single year you come into your new season. And if you're not on top of it right away, your season could be over before it even begins. So he has got a very, very challenging thing to learn in front of him, because the tires that he's coming from, and same with the car, like you can drive the hell out of that thing, the Indy car, and tire deg is not going to be crazy, right?
Right.
You can, get a bit of rotation on the rear. You can have snap oversteer on a quali lap and still be able to bang in a fastest lap. You do that in an F1 car and it's over. It's over. Depending on what type of rubber compound they're running. Are they running in a qualifying? Are they running a C5? They're running a C4? They're running a C3? All of that changes. And the tire compound plus the track every single year changes.
Yep.
So you're having to navigate all of this stuff every single. You have to be adaptable, and sometimes it's really hard as a driver to change all of the things that you're naturally supposed to do.
Right.
So the more things he can drive, the more experience he can get with a Pirelli tire, the more experience he can get with inside a real life F1 sim, the more prepared he's going to be and the more understanding he's going to have. So, Adam, that's sort of like the nuts and bolts of it, obviously. And I think it's smart of him to be doing Formula 2 first. I think this was a good move, but obviously this can really backfire on you and make you look really bad. So that's definitely a story that I'm sure a lot of Americans, some Canadians will definitely be following, because obviously Colton's got a big Canadian fan base as well.
Sure does. Okay. Well, Tim, listen, I want to know, before we go here, what is your schedule tomorrow? I know you're going to be at media sessions and things like that. Tell us what you're up to. Yeah,
I got media day tomorrow, so we have interviews lined up, obviously in the FIA press conference room that I'll have to tackle, and then going to try and speak with Max at some point. Going to try and speak with Oscar and Lando as well. Going to be trying to speak with Charles Leclerc, and we'll be speaking with Lance as well, and a few other drivers at the same time, and we'll see what happens. I'm trying to get us an interview, Adam. I'm not going to say who or what or when.
Because I don't know this. I don't even know this.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I shouldn't have said anything. I just shut my mouth. But I'm trying. I'm trying on this interview, and I'll explain more on my socials if it comes to fruition. It'll be a good one if we can get it. Okay, I'm excited, man. I'm excited. Wow, Tim has kept this completely secret from me, so I'm pumped about whatever it is. Now, Tim, have a really great race. Enjoy yourself. Please say hi to Nelson and everybody else that we know. Saturday qualifying podcast as well. I'll get that up same time. Yep. Beautiful. All right, buddy. We'll talk to you Sunday. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Adam.